Welcome to Wisdom and Wealth, for the discerning listener over 40, and for those seeking to cultivate a life of purpose, peace and prosperity. Have you ever felt like you are oversharing, talking when you shouldn't be? You've been warned before, haven't you? Be careful who you share your soul with. Yet still, you find yourself talking, explaining, defending, opening up to people who haven't earned the right to understand you. Let me ask you this. What if the silence you avoid is actually the sanctuary you need? Wisdom is quiet, ego is loud. Once you awaken, protect your peace, not your pride. That's a Buddhist truth many hear, but few ever live by. In a world that rewards noise, opinions, and oversharing, keeping your mouth shut feels like weakness. But what if it's your greatest strength? Before we delve deeper into this transformative wisdom, be sure to like and subscribe to Wisdom and Wealth for more life-changing insights. This message is for those who feel exhausted by explaining themselves, for the ones who've lost energy trying to be understood. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you just gave away a piece of yourself? That's not connection, that's leakage. In this video, you'll uncover the spiritual law that says not everything sacred should be spoken. We'll expose the hidden cost of overexposure, the strength in restraint, and how silence isn't passive, it's power under control. If you're going to take anything from this video, let it be this: the less you speak, the more you're heard. In life, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type "silence is my power." And stay until the end. There's a powerful bonus lesson that may shift your perspective forever. Let's begin with the secret: sacred, guard it like fire. Not everything precious is meant to be paraded. That one truth alone can shift your entire life. Have you ever noticed the wisest people say the least? The most peaceful ones often appear the quietest? Not because they have nothing to say, but because they've learned something powerful. Now would be a good time to like and subscribe to Wisdom and Wealth if you want more great content. The secret is sacred, and it must be guarded like fire. You see, in today's noisy world, everyone rushes to reveal, to explain, to prove. But Buddhist wisdom teaches the opposite. It whispers, if it is real, let it grow in silence. Like a seed in the dark soil, it doesn't need applause to sprout, it needs stillness. Imagine this: your truth, your dream, your healing, is like a glowing ember cupped gently in your hands. You feel its warmth, you know its value. But the moment you expose it to the wind of opinions, the gust of judgment, or the cold eyes of envy, it flickers, weakens, and maybe dies. Not because it lacked power, but because it lacked protection. That's the lesson in Buddhism: silence is not emptiness, it is strength. It is the space in which the soul matures. Too often, we seek validation before manifestation. We speak of change before we've rooted it in practice. We expose our inner shift to the outer world, and in doing so, we invite interference. So, ask yourself, what sacred truth within you have you damaged by revealing too soon? Was it a goal, a relationship, a new mindset? Have you ever walked out of a meditation inspired and then deflated because someone didn't understand? That is the cost of overexposure. In a world obsessed with sharing, the quiet ones protect. They don't hide out of fear, they remain silent out of discipline. There is a Zen teaching: when the archer misses the mark, he turns and looks within. Meaning, don't run outward, don't rush to explain, go inward. Strengthen the fire until it can't be blown out. If you're building a peaceful, focused, and awakened life, understand this: the early stages are fragile. Your peace is like fresh paint, it can be smudged by curious fingers. So, protect your journey like a flame. Don't talk about the temple you're building in your soul until the walls are strong. Don't share your clarity with the world until it stops needing approval. So, the next time you feel a breakthrough inside you, pause, sit with it, let it grow, let it become unshakable. Because once you know the secret, you don't need to shout it, you only need to live it. And when the time comes, your energy will speak louder than any words ever could. What are you holding on to that's not ready for the world? Have you mistaken silence for weakness, or have you discovered the quiet power of self-possession? If you're enjoying this video, please give us a like or subscribe. At the end of the day, remember this: the tree that bears the sweetest fruit makes the least noise, because true power does not boast, it simply grows. 2 words can drain the soul. Why does oversharing feel so heavy afterward? You walk away from the conversation, but something inside you feels depleted, like you gave too much, not just words, but pieces of yourself. Buddhist wisdom offers a quiet truth: every word spends energy. Use them like gold. Imagine your inner energy as water in a delicate bowl. With every unnecessary explanation, every moment of proving, every over-explained detail, you spill a little. And soon, there's nothing left but an empty bowl and a restless mind. We speak not just to express, but often to be seen, validated, understood. But in doing so, we give away more than we realize. Words are not just noise, they carry our essence. That's why when you explain your dreams to someone who doesn't understand, you feel more distant from the dream. When you defend your peace to someone who thrives on chaos, you feel less peaceful. That heaviness is not in your body, it's in your spirit. Buddhism teaches us the power of restraint, not silence out of fear, but silence out of wisdom. The quieter you become, the more you hear within and around you. You begin to notice how often words are just noise, how often we talk to fill space rather than add value, and worst of all, how easily peace leaks through open mouths. You don't need to explain your healing, you don't need to narrate your transformation. Your peace isn't a performance, it's a practice. So, let me ask you this: are you leaking your peace by explaining yourself too often? How many times have you poured out your energy just to feel unheard or misunderstood? How often have you spent your day in a conversation trying to justify why you said what you did? That cycle is draining and unnecessary. Now, picture this: cup your hands in silence. Feel the space between your fingers. That's where your strength lives. In the space, in the quiet, in the stillness. Every moment you choose not to respond, not to defend, not to over-explain, you're conserving your power, you're honoring your energy. This doesn't mean you shut yourself off, it means you become deliberate. You speak when words heal, you share when it deepens trust. Not to fill silence or calm insecurity. Because silence, when rooted in awareness, speaks volumes. In the fast world we live in, where speaking louder is seen as confidence and constant communication is confused with connection, the real mastery lies in measured expression. Stillness is not passive, it is focused. It is clarity. It is peace under pressure. If you truly value your inner peace, treat your words like sacred currency. Don't spend them where they won't grow, don't trade them for approval. Speak less, mean more, and remember this: the most powerful souls move through life like deep rivers, calm on the surface, powerful in silence. It's time to like and subscribe if this information has been helpful. 3. Silence is your fortress. What if you didn't react right away? What if instead of defending, explaining, or reacting, you simply stayed still, like a mountain facing the storm? In Buddhist philosophy, silence is not a void, it's not a lack of words, it's presence, power, clarity. Stillness isn't absence, it's hidden strength. When life pushes you, when others provoke you, when your mind races to respond, silence can be your greatest defense and your most profound answer. We're taught to respond quickly, to explain ourselves, to win arguments, but wisdom lives in restraint. Just like a candle burns steadier in a still room, your peace becomes sharper in silence. Imagine yourself as a mountain, deeply rooted, unmoved by passing winds. The storm can scream around you, but it cannot move your center. That's what silence gives you: emotional sovereignty. The strength to feel deeply but respond wisely. The power to observe without absorbing. You don't always need to explain your actions, you don't always have to respond to disrespect, you don't have to meet every energy that enters your space. The moment you master silence, you stop becoming a puppet to outside noise. You take back control, and in that control, there is peace, there is clarity, there is power. Sit still and count 5 deep breaths. With every breath, feel the world quiet around you. Feel how much noise was just echoing in your own mind, unnecessary, unhelpful, unconscious. Most of what disturbs us isn't life itself, it's our reaction to it. But when you practice silence, you begin to separate stimulus from response. You begin to see what the noise tries to hide, truth. Think about it. How many times have you regretted what you said in the heat of the moment? How often has silence revealed the truth better than your words ever could? Sometimes, by saying nothing, you say everything. You show strength without arrogance, wisdom without resistance, and dignity without pride. Silence also protects you, it shields your energy, it gives you space to process instead of react, and in that space, transformation begins. It's where the ego loosens its grip, where emotions settle, where the heart speaks not out of fear or anger but from grounded wisdom. So, what becomes clear in silence that noise covers up? The answer is yourself. Your true feelings. Your real intentions. And your next right move. Without silence, we act on emotion, with silence, we act with vision. That's why Buddhist masters meditate before they speak. That's why stillness is praised as the highest strength. Because once you've trained yourself to sit with discomfort, you become unshakable. Let this be your reminder, not everything requires a response, not every situation deserves your energy, and not every battle is worth your peace. The world shouts, the wise remain still. The storm passes, but the mountain remains. That mountain is you. Give wisdom and wealth a like or subscribe to keep your mind sharp and ready. 4. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Why do you feel misunderstood even after opening up? You shared your thoughts, your pain, your dreams, and instead of feeling lighter, you felt exposed, even betrayed. That's not weakness, that's the soul reminding you of something sacred. The deepest parts of you are not for casual consumption. In Buddhist wisdom, not everything meant to be known is meant to be shared. Just because something is true doesn't mean it belongs in every room, every conversation, or in the hands of those who don't know how to hold it. Imagine your inner world as a sacred temple, quiet, vast, full of meaning. Would you allow anyone to wander in with muddy shoes just because they asked? Of course not. And yet, how often do we open the gates of our hearts to people who haven't earned our trust, to those who cannot hold space for our truth without twisting it? When we do that, we end up hurt, not because we were vulnerable, but because we were unguarded. There is a difference. We're taught to open up, to be authentic, to speak our truth, and yes, vulnerability is power, but discernment is wisdom. Who you share your truth with matters, because not everyone is capable of receiving it with respect. Some will judge it, some will misuse it, some will pretend to care just enough to get inside, then leave fingerprints on your peace. So, take a moment, place your hand on your heart, and whisper to yourself, this is not for everyone. That's not cold, that's clarity. That's a boundary, not a wall. In Buddhist mindfulness, protecting your peace is an act of compassion, not just for you, but for others too. When you only share what is ready with those who are ready to hear it, you allow truth to land where it can grow, not where it can be trampled. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought, I shouldn't have said all that? That feeling, that ache in your chest, that's your inner world telling you it wasn't safe there. So, ask yourself, who have you allowed in that should have remained at the gate? Who has access to your temple but doesn't honor its silence? This is your invitation to reclaim your sanctuary, to choose stillness over explaining, to know the difference between someone who listens and someone who merely waits to speak, and to understand that your depth is not a spectacle, it's a gift. A gift that must be protected, especially in a world that constantly asks you to give more, show more, prove more. There is power in saying less, there is peace in choosing who gets to know you, and there is freedom in realizing you are not obligated to explain the most sacred parts of yourself. Because in the end, the soul thrives in silence, not spectacle. The heart heals in solitude, not exposure. And your truth, like any sacred flame, must be kept away from careless winds. Let us know if you'd like to see more videos on the topic of wisdom and wealth by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. 5. Ego speaks, wisdom waits. Is your truth seeking expression or validation? That question alone can transform how you communicate. There's a moment right before we speak when the ego rushes in, hungry to be heard, desperate to be seen, eager to prove. But Buddhist wisdom teaches something subtle and powerful. Wisdom is what remains after ego leaves the room. You don't need to say everything you think. Not every opinion deserves a stage. Sometimes, silence is not avoidance, it's refinement. It's the pause that filters the noise from the truth. Imagine your mind as a bowl of water disturbed by mud. That mud is ego, resentment, pride, insecurity, fear. The more you stir, the cloudier it gets. But if you just wait, if you let it settle, the water clears and what's real becomes visible. That's the power of waiting before speaking. That's the difference between reacting from ego and responding from wisdom. We've all been in conversations where we speak too quickly, driven by the need to correct, defend, or dominate, and afterward we feel off. Why? Because the words didn't come from clarity, they came from a part of us that needed control, not truth. Buddhist masters teach us that true insight doesn't rush, it waits, it watches, it listens. Because wisdom doesn't arise from the mouth, it arises from stillness. So, before you speak today, ask yourself, is this from wisdom or ego? That tiny moment of self-awareness can stop an argument, save a relationship, or redirect your energy inward instead of outward. If you waited just 10 seconds longer before answering, how many conversations would change? How many apologies would you never have to make? How much more peaceful would your interactions become? It's not about suppressing your voice, it's about knowing when your voice is being hijacked by emotion. Ego loves to speak first, it wants the last word. But wisdom knows the strength of restraint. Wisdom sees beyond the moment. It doesn't need to be right, it chooses peace over pride. Think of someone you admire for their calm presence. They don't rush to speak, they weigh their words. That quiet strength, that's what self-mastery looks like. That's what emotional discipline sounds like. And that's what silence rooted in awareness offers you. There's power in waiting, there's clarity in pausing, and there's truth in the space between reaction and response. The less you let ego dictate your tongue, the more your words start to heal instead of harm, uplift instead of compete, clarify instead of confuse. So, reflect on this. What would your conversations look like if you waited just 10 seconds longer? How many wounds could be avoided? How much wisdom would finally have space to speak? Remember, you are not here to win arguments, you are here to find peace. Let the ego go quiet, let the water clear, and let your words come from the still depths of who you truly are. If you like what you are hearing on this channel, please consider giving us a like on this video, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. 6. Self-reflection is the real voice of power. What happens when you listen to your inner silence? Not the silence of absence, but the silence that echoes with answers you've been too distracted to hear? In a world addicted to noise, to reaction, to relentless sharing, we forget the deepest wisdom isn't spoken aloud, it rises when everything else goes quiet. Answers arrive when the questioning stops. That's the paradox, we chase clarity through words, but it's through stillness that truth finally emerges. Think of your mind like a cave. When it's filled with shouting, your doubts, your worries, other people's opinions, you can't hear anything but the chaos. But when silence returns, suddenly there's an echo. That's reflection. That's where real power begins, not in proving yourself to the world, but in finally understanding yourself. And yet, how much of your life has been spent explaining, justifying your choices, defending your peace? If you're constantly trying to be understood, ask yourself, have you taken the time to understand you? Buddhist philosophy teaches that before we speak, before we act, before we reach outward, we must turn inward. The answers we're chasing are already here, hidden beneath layers of judgment, ego, and noise. Silence isn't emptiness, it's a mirror. It shows you what you've been avoiding, but only if you're brave enough to look. Close your eyes for a moment. Ask yourself, what truth have I avoided hearing? The one that whispers quietly when you're alone? The one you drown with distractions? The truth doesn't yell, it waits. And when you stop performing, stop reacting, stop explaining, it speaks clearly, calmly, with conviction. That is the voice of self-reflection. That is the real voice of power. Most people think speaking up is strength, but there's a deeper strength in sitting quietly with your thoughts, with your contradictions, with your flaws, and choosing not to run. That stillness takes courage. To ask yourself the hard questions, to admit what isn't working, to let go of what no longer fits. That's the work most people avoid, but it's the very path that leads to peace. So, the next time you feel the urge to vent, to post, to prove something, pause. Turn inward. Ask, is this about clarity, or is it about control? Let that moment of self-inquiry guide your next step. Because the most powerful people don't speak from reaction, they speak from awareness. When you begin to understand yourself, you stop needing the world to do it for you. You stop looking for permission, you stop chasing approval. You begin to live in alignment with purpose, with peace, with presence. That's what silence offers, not escape, but awakening. Remember, you are not your noise, you are the awareness behind it. Let silence be your teacher, let reflection be your voice, and let your truth rise not from the need to be heard, but from the knowing that you finally listened to yourself. Subscribe to our channel Wisdom and Wealth if this information has resonated with you. 7. Discipline is the language of the monks. Why does restraint feel like power in monks? Because it is. Not the power that dominates, but the power that refuses to be disturbed. Buddhist wisdom doesn't glorify noise, it honors stillness. It doesn't admire control over others, it admires control over self. Restraint is not suppression, it is refined force. To the untrained eye, silence may look like weakness, but to those walking the inner path, silence is discipline, and discipline is a sacred language that needs no translation. Monks aren't quiet because they have nothing to say, they're quiet because they've realized not everything needs to be said. True discipline isn't about holding back out of fear, it's about choosing stillness from a place of deep inner clarity. Like a sword that stays sheathed, not because it's dull, but because it's sharp. Its power is in the patience, its strength is in its restraint. That's what makes it dangerous, that's what makes it wise. Think of how many times you've spoken just to defend your image, prove a point, or avoid discomfort. Now ask yourself, did it actually help, or did it cost you peace? The disciplined mind knows this, not every moment demands a response. Sometimes, silence wins the battle before it even begins. Restraint isn't weakness, it's self-respect. It's trusting that not everything needs fixing, not every opinion deserves your energy, not every insult needs an answer. Watch your next impulse to speak. Feel it rise in your chest, then let it fall. Can you allow yourself to be misunderstood and stay silent anyway? That's the test. Most people can't sit with the discomfort of being misread, but monks train themselves to let go of that need, because truth doesn't require defense, it just needs time to reveal itself. Discipline in Buddhist practice is not punishment, it's purification. It's removing what's unnecessary. It's sculpting your mind into something clear, focused, and powerful. And part of that sculpting means cutting away the need to speak impulsively, the need to be liked, the need to be seen. When you let those urges pass, you make room for something deeper, presence. This discipline isn't just for monks, it's for anyone who wants to stop being a slave to emotion, anyone who wants to respond not react, who wants to lead not follow the chaos, who wants to build a mind that can hold both silence and strength. So, next time you're tempted to speak from anger, pride, or restlessness, pause. Ask yourself, is this the highest version of me, or just the loudest? Let the moment pass, let silence speak. Because what you don't say often builds more peace than anything you do. And remember this, the sharpest blade is the one that's rarely drawn, the strongest soul is the one that doesn't need to prove. Give wisdom and wealth a thumbs up if you agree. 8. Timing is wisdom, silence is readiness. When is the right time to speak the truth? Not when you feel pressure, not when your emotions are loudest, but when the moment itself is ready to receive it. In Buddhist wisdom, this is a lesson often overlooked: the tree does not bloom in winter. Truth, like fruit, ripens only in the right season. If you rush it, it tastes bitter; if you wait too long, it falls untouched. Timing is not just strategy, it's wisdom. And silence is how you know if the moment has truly come. So many of us rush to speak, rush to reveal, rush to decide, because we're afraid of losing the moment. But real power lies in watching that urgency, letting it pass, and then choosing to speak with purpose. Just because something is true doesn't mean it's time. Truth shared too soon can be rejected, truth shared too late can feel empty. But truth shared when the soul is calm and the moment is open, that's where healing begins. Imagine this, you're holding a seed. You want it to grow. You don't yell at it, you don't dig it up every day to check. You give it light, water, patience. You trust the process. That's how truth should be shared, with patience, with awareness, with timing. Not everything needs to be said just because you're feeling it. The disciplined mind watches feelings rise and fall and waits until clarity settles in before making any major decision. Today, sit in silence for 1 full minute. Just breathe. Let the noise settle. Let the urgency dissolve. Because urgency often comes from fear, fear of being unheard, fear of missing your chance. But wisdom waits. Wisdom knows silence is not inaction, it's preparation. Ask yourself, am I speaking because it's time, or because I'm uncomfortable with waiting? Are you sharing from ripeness, or from anxiety? When you speak from urgency, it's your ego asking to be seen. When you speak from ripeness, it's your spirit sharing what's needed. One drains, the other empowers. One creates noise, the other creates change. We live in a culture that pressures us to speak instantly, to react without reflection. But Buddhist monks train themselves in silence first, because in silence timing becomes clear. They learn that just as the moon moves the tide in its own rhythm, truth too must follow its own natural flow. There is no need to force your insight, your growth, or your words into moments that are not yet ready. Let your silence do the inner work, let your stillness ripen the message, and when the time comes, your words won't just be heard, they'll be felt, because they were born from awareness, not reaction. Remember this, a wise soul knows that silence is not the absence of truth, it is the soil where truth prepares to bloom. Let wisdom and wealth help you bloom by liking and subscribing today. 9. Power is measured in what you can hold back. Why is silence feared by the insecure and mastered by the wise? Because silence is where true power lives. It's where the ego panics, but the soul finds strength. In a world constantly shouting for attention, the one who remains calm, who holds back, who doesn't flinch, becomes the most magnetic presence in the room. The one who doesn't flinch leads the room. Power isn't about how loud you can be, it's about how much you can hold within without letting it spill. Think of deep water. On the surface, it looks still, almost calm, but beneath lies depth, pressure, mystery, and strength. That's the kind of person the world respects, even if they don't understand why. It's not the one who reacts instantly, but the one who chooses restraint, not out of fear, but out of control. True power is not in what you release, but in what you can hold back. So, where are you giving away your power just to feel seen? Are you rushing to respond so you don't feel ignored? Are you oversharing just to stay relevant? Are you stepping out of alignment just to be accepted? That's borrowed power, and it fades fast. But the person who knows who they are doesn't have to explain. They don't have to react. Their energy speaks before their mouth does. Their silence isn't empty, it's loaded with presence. Try this: sit upright, say nothing for 60 seconds. Feel the discomfort rise, then smile. Notice how your body wants to fill the silence, to justify the stillness, and notice what happens when you don't. That pause, that space, that's where strength is born. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that what we can hold without needing to release defines our mastery. Restraint isn't repression, it's recognition. You see the emotion, you feel the urge, but you choose to stay rooted. Power in its highest form is quiet. It doesn't need applause, it doesn't crave validation, it doesn't lose itself in the noise. It simply is. The calmest person in the room is often the most dangerous, not because they're aggressive, but because they've mastered themselves. They don't chase power, they are power. The truth is, most people speak to relieve pressure, but the wise sit with it. They trust that emotions are waves, they rise, they fall. You don't need to ride every one, some are meant to be observed. And in observing without acting, you reclaim your energy. You begin to live with intention, not impulse. So, next time you feel the urge to react, to prove, to interrupt, to assert, pause. Ask yourself, is this strength or insecurity disguised as noise? Let that moment guide you back to silence, not to hide, but to hold. Because what you can hold without breaking defines you. And always remember, power doesn't roar, it waits, it watches, then it moves with purpose. That's the secret most never learn. Like and subscribe to Wisdom and Wealth if this video has helped you learn to master your power. 10. Inner mastery begins where the world ends. What do you truly control in a world that constantly pulls you in every direction, demanding responses, forcing reactions, offering chaos disguised as opportunity? The only real control you ever have is over yourself. Not the situation, not the people, not the outcome, just you. That's why Buddhist wisdom teaches, master yourself, and no one can master you. True power isn't about controlling what's outside, it's about calming what's inside. That is the root of inner mastery. Like the lotus that rises through thick mud and blooms untouched by it, self-control is the art of moving through mess without letting it cling to you. Everyone faces storms, setbacks, and situations designed to provoke. But the person who has trained their mind, who chooses response over reaction, walks through fire and doesn't let it burn their peace. That is what separates the distracted from the disciplined, the reactive from the resilient. Every day you are tested, not in dramatic, cinematic moments, but in quiet, subtle ways. The message you didn't like, the judgment you didn't expect, the outcome you couldn't change. In those moments, your ego wants to flare, to strike back, to reclaim power. But ego always plays the short game. Mastery, on the other hand, is patient. It doesn't need to react, because it already knows where its strength lies. Ask yourself right now, can you walk through fire without burning your peace? That's not just poetic, it's practical. When someone insults you and you don't flinch, you win. When life delays you and you breathe instead of breaking, you rise. When the world is loud and you remain calm, you lead, not by force, but by presence. Self-mastery doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in the noise, the tension, the conflict, and your choice to remain centered. Whisper this to yourself every day: I respond, I don't react. That becomes your anchor, because in that split second between stimulus and response lies your freedom. Most people never pause long enough to find it, but those who do, they become unshakable. You don't need to fix everything around you, you just need to master the one thing that follows you everywhere: your mind. That's where the real work is. That's where freedom lives, not in bending the world to match your expectations, but in becoming so rooted within that nothing from the outside can move you. This is the secret: once you've mastered yourself, the world loses its grip on you. You no longer chase validation, you no longer fear rejection, you no longer crumble under chaos. Because your peace is no longer negotiable, it's trained, anchored, alive. So, let the world be loud, let the storms come, let the fire rise. You don't need to run, just rise. Like the lotus, rooted, calm, and untouched. Want to learn more about self-mastery? Like and subscribe for more tips on wisdom and wealth. Bonus lesson, let go, and you'll rise quietly. What if you could win without needing recognition? In a world obsessed with being seen, validated, and praised, there is a silent strength in those who rise quietly, those who let go. Not because they gave up, but because they grew beyond the need to hold on. Letting go is not weakness, it's flight. It's what happens when you stop gripping the old narrative, the past wound, the need to be understood, and instead release everything weighing you down. You don't fall, you rise. Think of a cloud, it holds its rain until the moment comes to release, and when it does, the burden drops, the sky clears, and space is made for something lighter, freer, and new. That's what it's like when you finally let go. You let go of resentment, of over-explaining, of trying to fix people who aren't ready, of needing applause for your healing. You stop chasing closure from people who can't give it, and peace becomes your priority, not proof. Many carry pain like a badge, thinking it gives their story weight, but healing isn't loud. It doesn't scream for attention, it whispers, moves slowly, and arrives like dawn, soft, but unstoppable. You don't need to show your growth, you just need to live it. You don't need to explain your silence, you just need to rest in it. And when you release your ego's grip on how things should be, life begins to flow toward what could be. Imagine for a moment your stress, your ego, your old identity floating away like mist, no resistance, no argument, just acceptance. That's where peace begins, not in the next accomplishment or breakthrough, but in the surrender. Because what you release frees you, and what you keep clinging to, that's what owns you. So, ask yourself, what weight are you still gripping that's keeping you from flying free? Is it the need to be right, to be heard, to be liked, or is it the fear of being forgotten if you stop performing? Whatever it is, recognize it, honor it, but don't let it anchor your evolution. The truth is, not everyone will see your growth, not everyone needs to. The tree doesn't shout as it grows, it just reaches higher, quietly, powerfully, undeniably. This is the secret, the less you carry, the higher you rise. Let go of being understood, let go of revenge disguised as justice, let go of old definitions of success. Your freedom isn't in fighting for space, it's in creating it inside yourself. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that release is not loss, it's alignment. It's finding yourself beneath everything you've outgrown. So, breathe, surrender, and allow yourself to rise, not with noise, not with proof, but with peace. Thank you for tuning into Wisdom and Wealth today. We wish you a serene and prosperous journey. Quick summary of the principles: the secret is sacred, guard it like fire. Not all truths are meant to be spoken. When we speak too soon or too often, we dilute the power of what we've discovered. Protecting inner knowledge strengthens it and allows it to transform us silently. Words can drain the soul. Every word uses energy. Oversharing scatters your mental focus and emotional clarity. Silence helps preserve your strength and keep your purpose intact. Silence is your fortress. In a world of noise, stillness becomes your protection. Remaining silent allows you to see more clearly, feel more deeply, and respond from a place of peace, not pressure. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Trust is earned, not assumed. Sharing your deepest thoughts with unworthy ears often leads to misunderstanding or judgment. Keep your truth guarded until it finds the right place to be received. Ego speaks, wisdom waits. Much of what we say is driven by ego needing to prove, defend, or be right. Wisdom, on the other hand, knows when silence holds more value than opinion. Self-reflection is the real voice of power. Rather than seeking answers outside, True growth happens when you reflect inwardly. Silence isn't empty, it's where the most meaningful insights arise. Discipline is the language of the monks. The ability to withhold your impulses and reactions shows strength. Choosing silence when provoked isn't weakness, it's spiritual discipline and inner power. Timing is wisdom, silence is readiness. Not every truth is meant to be spoken now. When you wait, your message becomes more potent. Patience gives power to your words. Power is measured in what you can hold back. Control over your emotions, reactions, and speech is true power. You don't need to show your strength, holding it back gracefully is the mark of mastery. Inner mastery begins where the world ends. Your true power doesn't depend on what others see, it's born in silence, nurtured in stillness, and revealed through peace, not performance. Let go and you'll rise quietly. Letting go of your need to explain, prove, or control is the beginning of peace. When you stop forcing, life begins to flow, and you begin to rise effortlessly. You don't owe anyone your inner world, you don't have to share every breakthrough, every realization, every scar. Sometimes the highest form of healing is silence, and the deepest form of strength is restraint. Every time you choose presence over proving, discipline over distraction, stillness over seeking attention, you unlock a new level of self-mastery. This is where your true power begins, not by being seen, but by being settled. True wisdom whispers, it doesn't announce. Let the world wonder, let your silence grow louder than their noise, because when you guard the sacred within, you become unshakable. If this video resonated with you, leave a comment below, silence is my strength, and remember, like, share, and subscribe to Wisdom and Wealth for more powerful Buddhist insights on